Welcome to the Camera Shake podcast, episode 30. Episode 30 is very reminiscent of episode 1 because, again, we're filming from home. It's another national lockdown in the UK, and we have to work from home. So I am in my house over here, and Nick...
I'm here.
This is like, in many ways, I was thinking about this morning. I kind of thought like, well, actually, this is much easier because, working from home is always easier, right? Because you can just set up and you can do it in your own time. But the truth is, it actually takes me way longer to set this up at home than it takes to drive over to yours.
Not an hour ago, I was just thinking exactly the same thing. I was thinking, God, this is really annoying to set up. Because at least, obviously, as you know, with the set that we're using, I pretty much leave that set up other than gear all the time. I've just rearranged my room to accommodate that, and it works really well. But now it looks like it's the same setup where I am, but actually it's not. It's completely different now. I've had to do it. Everything's had to move out. And if you check, if you managed to see our story earlier on this week when we're filming this right now, you'll see actually it's a bit of a mess around here. I'm not very happy about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's, it really does feel like we're back where we started, right?
Yeah, it does feel like that. It does. And I don't mind it. I'm enjoying this setup, but it's a pain. It's a pain.
Yeah. I mean, I think what we've done over the first 30 episodes is we kind of, we made it easier and easier on ourselves to produce what I feel were podcasts that got better and better over time, or podcast episodes that got better and better over time. And now we're back where we started, but we've got all the experience of 30 episodes behind us, which in a way makes it much easier.
I think it does. That said, though, we haven't done one of our just us for a few weeks now because we've had so many guests on, and then we had our kind of lockdown special, if you like, too, in amongst all of that. So actually we haven't done this on our own for a while, so it's like, how do we do this again?
yeah so I mean it's been quite an eventful few weeks because lots happened. We're back in national lockdown. And in fact, we're like a whole week in, aren't we?
2 weeks?
Oh, 2 weeks even, yeah. Yeah, it's the middle of November. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 2 weeks in.
Yeah.
So halfway through, hopefully.
Hopefully. Yeah, we shall see. But I have to say, other than some shops and, bars and pubs and things like that being shut, it doesn't feel like we're in lockdown outside. The roads are just as busy as they normally are. There's more people on the streets than I think I've seen in months as well. It's really strange, and I'm getting out and about every single day at the moment. So I've got a little project underway, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But yeah, so I'm seeing what it's like every day, and doesn't feel like it out there.
Yeah, I think last weekend was probably the first time that it occurred to me that something was different, because I was I was taking my daughter back to Milton Keynes in the evening. I was on the motorway, and it was significantly less traffic than there would normally be. But that was really the first time I've actually noticed it. Other than that, it just seems like not that much has really changed. I'm really surprised to see so many different shops open or being classed as like essential stores, toy shops, although my daughter would disagree with me. She would think they're totally essential, but yeah, I mean, it's, it doesn't seem, it's definitely not as harsh a lockdown as it was the first time around. No. That's for sure.
No, it doesn't. And, it's funny you mentioned about essential shops. I won't name anyone or any shop in particular, but I understand it that bike shops have been allowed to remain open. So I do know that there is someone out there who runs a completely different type of shop, and has just moved some of his old bikes in there to sell, and has managed to remain open.
Yeah.
I'm not judging that. That's.
I contemplated the idea of maybe selling muffins, really expensive muffins with a free photo shoot to go with it. So something like that. But no, I mean, in reality, obviously, we all have to do our bit. So
exactly.
So that's the thing. But yeah, I mean, what have you been up to over the last couple of weeks? Because I haven't really seen you in person for a little while.
No, we've been, we talk every day over FaceTime or Zoom or whatever, but it's been surprisingly busy, which is great. It's actually put me in a better mood, because if I'm brutally honest, prior to that, I was really, really feeling the effects of the last few months. It's kind of hit me quite hard in a way I wasn't expecting. So I spent a couple of weeks really trying to process that and deal with that, and I'm coming through it now. But it's really helped to have been quite busy. And they're projects of footage that was filmed prior to the lockdown coming in. So there's been a lot of work being done on that. And I started a new personal project. As part of a couple of episodes ago, obviously we did our lockdown special where we had a few of our prior guests on, and a couple of them mentioned things around personal projects and keeping yourself creative during this time. And it reminded me of when we had our weekly challenges going on too in the first lockdown. And I thought, I need to do something. So I've actually started going out in my hometown, and I only live in a little village, and taking a photo every day of something that resonates with me on that particular day. Doesn't matter whether it's raining. It was pouring the other day, and I managed to get this maybe 15-second sort of break in the rain to take a photo. And so I'm going to do that for the next few weeks. I'm going to go out every single day. It gives me a reason to get out of the house, get some fresh air, take a photo, and I'm putting it out there on my Instagram. And that's it. And I've loved doing it. Tried my hand at black and white photography yesterday as well, which was fun. I don't do that normally. And learning a couple of new little sort of techniques that help around black and white photos. That was good fun. That was really good fun to do that. And there's a reason I don't normally do black and white photography. It's mostly because I find that it gets used at the wrong times. And what I mean by that is I often see black and white photos where the color photo wasn't great. So they've just turned it into black and white because it gives it an edge, but it's still not a great photo. So we want to see it constantly. And I've kind of shy away from black and white photos because of that. But I thought, I'll just do it on this. It kind of made sense to me for this particular image to be in black and white. It was a photo of just this passageway in Eton. If I was to live anywhere, it'd be down this road. And they're really, really old cottages down there, and it's closed off with a private gate, and it's got I don't know, would you call it Tudor, kind of the wood cladding, the black and white, kind of stuff. And because it had black and white already in there as well, it kind of felt oldie worldy, and it kind of made sense to make it black and white. So I did. And led me down a bit of a rabbit hole of looking at sort of appropriate ways to edit black and white photos. But so I'm going to carry on doing that over the next few weeks. And like I say, loving it. I couldn't recommend a little project like that.
Talking about personal projects, I was in a meeting a few days ago, and one of the people in the meeting said something along the lines of like, so what's your plan for this lockdown? What are your planned achievements? And I kind of thought, what, in this time around, in this lockdown, I want to create some content that helps other people, and something that helps other photographers, for example. And we made a start on that with the lockdown special that we brought out a few weeks ago, which was a really good insight into how you can prepare yourself, not only from a business perspective, but also mentally for a period like this where, you have to effectively shut your business down and you may not have any income. And And that was really, really useful. And I think, based on the responses that we've had to that video, it really goes to show that there were a lot of people out there who actually found that very helpful as well, which is fantastic. But we've been talking about a project that we've got in the pipeline that's particularly aimed at musicians, because both you and me have a background in music. And of course, musicians are pretty much in the same boat. I mean, if you're a full-time musician, you're pretty screwed right now. There's no gigs, there's no venues open. It's dead, and you might be suffering. And so I'm not going to give away too much at this point, but we're working on a project that hopefully, will help some of our friends somewhere along the line.
Absolutely. I couldn't be more excited about that project. And like you say, we won't give too much information away just yet. But it's, being a musician myself and a regular gigging music until coronavirus, a regular gigging musician as well. It's hit me hard too. And I know that if what we're going to offer was available to me, so to speak, God, I would really appreciate it. And that's why I'm so excited about being able to do this one over the coming weeks.
Yeah, and to see, in the words of the great Tesco, which is a supermarket chain over here in the UK, every little helps. That's really the basic thinking, isn't it? So hopefully we get some of our friends involved in making this happen. But even if not, we'll do it anyway. So that's also one thing I've learned is if something's really close to your heart, then you might as well just do it. Irrespective of of who else you can get involved. Just have to get it done. So that's what we'll do. But you'll hear more of this over the next few weeks. I'm sure it should be quite exciting. But yeah. So talking about photography, you've been out and about taking some pictures around Eton, which is where you live. I've had a think about creating some images at home, not too dissimilar to the kind of images that we made last time round. But we should really think of another little photo competition.
I think you're absolutely right. We need to do something. Got to share the competition urge with everybody out there. That's what I need to do.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. Let's have a think about what we could do. We'll have a think about it, and we'll come back to you at the end of the show. And maybe we've had an idea as to what kind of photo we could create whilst we're stuck at home.
So I was reading an article earlier today, actually, and this might be an interesting thing that we could do. It was so there's this guy called Jason Page, and he's taken a Polaroid camera which has a bulb setting on it, and he's been taking portraits of people, but light painting portraits. So what he's done is he's setting up his Polaroid camera, set it to bulb mode. It's on a tripod, and he is using a light stick like what we're using when we're light painting the cars that we've been doing over the last few months.
Yeah,
he's light painting the portrait kind of normally, so to speak, but then he's using other things like fiber optic lights. Use like 50 of them on a kind of stick, and they just like a floating around. Those type of lights. And then he's also doing, kind of fancy artistic style kind of light painting, typical light painting that you might expect. And then he's stopping the camera, and they're really good. They're really cool. Good. They're really interesting to look at, and it's just a different way of doing it. One thing that he was quite clear on was make sure it exposes. You don't expose it in daylight, so to speak. You just expose it where you are, and obviously it being done on a Polaroid looks great anyway. It's a Polaroid. You've got to love a Polaroid. And this, just standard kind of light painting techniques in it, combining the two, the result is very cool. Very, very cool. Highly urge you to check that one out. It's worth a watch. But we could do something like that. And we could combine it with product photography. So we can do product photography, light painted, using a Polaroid.
Yeah. I did some food photography the other day, which is sort of as a potential showcase for a potential client, basically. And that was quite cool. It made me so hungry though. I don't know if I could do full-time food photography, really, because I'd be eating all of it.
Yeah.
But
just burgers, man.
Yeah, just burgers. That's it. Should specialize.
I'd feel like I'm in Falling Down and going into the burger joint and saying, I want a burger that looks like that. Not this.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, it's fun to stretch out sometimes into things that you don't usually do a lot of.
Yeah.
So I quite enjoy that, and it's not. So I mean, working from home has got its advantages, but yeah, it's funny to think that. What's funny actually is that the last photo shoot that we did together before the first lockdown was a car. Right, it was an automotive shoot.
Yeah.
And then the last photo shoot that we did together before this lockdown was also a car.
That's right, absolutely was, wasn't it?
Yeah. Although we went up in the world of cars, I think in March or something it was a Toyota RAV4. This time it was a Ferrari. So which definitely somehow moved up.
Oh, it was a Ferrari and a TT.
Oh yeah, it's a Ferrari and a TT. That's right. Double whammy. Yeah. See, this is something I took away from. I think I can't remember who exactly said that in the lockdown special episode, but it was suggested that you'd keep some of the editing work. I think maybe it was Hannah, basically. So I think she suggested that you don't edit all the all of your work straight away, but you just keep some on the side for a situation like this, and then at least you can come back and you have something to do. And that's exactly what I did with that shoot, because I still have, I think, 1 or 2 images to fully edit and retouch on those. So that's good. But that was an interesting shoot, although it was cold as heck.
Oh God, wasn't it? We were on top of a multi-story car park, weren't we? And it was freezing. It was so windy, so windy to the point where even just holding the light was even that was difficult.
Yeah, it was really windy, and it was cold as hell. So cold wind, especially when you're right on top of the building. That was terrible. But yeah, I mean, we came up with some good shots.
It was worth it.
Yeah, it was definitely worth it.
Yeah, they looking great, looking absolutely great.
Sometimes you just have to, suffer for your art.
Exactly. Exactly. But there was what it was like the other day going out, and it was pouring down, but I insisted to myself, I've got to do this. So I went out. I came back. I was just drenched, absolutely drenched. Of course, a couple of hours later, there was no rain. It was all gone. But I didn't know that was going to happen. So you suffer for it, but it's worth it in the end.
Yeah, I seem to get drenched every day because I, have to take the dog out.
There it is. This week's mention of the dog.
That's it. And he's asleep right next to me. He's been pretty good so far.
Good boy. Solo.
Yeah, this is one of the hilarious things about doing like Zoom meetings and everything is because there's a time during the day about midday or something when he really gets active, and so any afternoon meeting you can be guaranteed to see the dog fly back and forth behind me, playing with some toy or something, going crazy. But he's all right. He's not a morning dog, so anything in the morning is usually it's pretty good. He's just asleep. So
my kind of dog.
Yeah. How do your cats deal with the whole lockdown thing? Do you keep them inside all the time now, or do they still go out, or what's the deal?
No, they still go out. Let's do that. Nothing's changed for them. It's only because the weather turns, they stay in by themselves half the time.
Well, here's the thing about cats, right? That I didn't realize, and this may not be true, but it's just something I've heard. So, and this is really a question that goes out to all of our listeners in North America, because I heard that in North America, cats are not allowed out of the house, or people don't let their cats out of the house. And I think the reason was because there's like natural predators or whatever. But I just wondered whether that's true, because although I've lived in the States before, I never really had a cat, so I wouldn't know. But if you're listening to the Camera Shake podcast, from North America, just send us an email or send us a Facebook message, or hit us up on Instagram at Camera Shake Podcast, and just let us know whether that's actually true. I'd be interested to know. So, do you let your cats out or not? Are they just house cats?
Well, didn't expect to be talking about cats today.
Well, there was just a question that came up. Actually, in fact, my daughter asked me about this. And I'm like, I really don't know, because like my family in Canada don't have cats, and I don't remember. I mean, I've never had a cat when I was over there, so I don't know. But anyway, so that's it may just be a rumor. It may just be fake news, man.
Fake news.
The fake news media. The fake news cat media.
Yes. It's going to happen. I'm sure it'll be on Trump's Twitter at some point.
Oh, for sure. Man, oh my God. I'll tell you one thing. This is like the non-political part of the show. Bang. But I'm really not a Twitter user usually, because, well, I don't know. It's just not something that I typically do. But I did follow the Trumpster. I follow two people on Twitter, right? The Trumpster, the old Donald, and Mark Hamill. Perfect combination. Love it. If you're not following Mark Hamill on Twitter, you're going to have to follow him. His tweets are the best, bar none.
And I'm guessing they couldn't be polar opposites, could they? Couldn't be more.
Yeah, it's just funny. Again, I don't really use Twitter, but I just follow that for pure entertainment purposes. So,
What's Trump going to say next?
Yeah, and then what's Hamill going to say next? Yeah. That's the thing.
That's cool. I like that.
But what was even more worrying? We were in a meeting the other day with somebody, and when I mentioned Mark Hamill, that guy dude, that person went, "Mark who?" Like, Mark Hamill. Huh?
Yeah, that was particularly upsetting.
Luke Skywalker. Huh? So, Star Wars. Oh.
Oh man.
Oh my God. It's either I'm getting old or the world is coming to an end. One of the two.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man.
Talking about Star Wars. Have you managed to get into the second season of The Mandalorian yet? No, I haven't. I'm saving it. I want to binge watch it when it's all done. Ooh.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to that day.
It's been a long time where it's been a long time since I've been like a fan of weekly release episodes. Like in the olden days, like when we were kids. Do you remember back in the day when like we used to watch a TV show or a series, and they would show an episode every week, right? And nowadays you can think, oh man, that's lame, because I want to binge watch the whole shebang, right? It's usually when I'm really not that turned on by any series that's released weekly. What was it, like Star Trek Discovery or something? That's really turned me off. I watched the first couple of episodes, and actually it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad at all. But because I had to wait like for a week, it was like, ugh, you kind of, nowadays our attention spans are so short that I feel like I don't know. I feel like I lose interest quickly. But with The Mandalorian, it's the exact opposite. I loved the first two episodes, and I'm like, oh man, give me episode 3, which has just landed on Disney Plus. So that's gonna be my evening's entertainment tonight.
See, it's interesting you say that, because I watched both of those series, right? And I've deliberately held off Mandalorian because I loved the first season, and I just don't think I could handle waiting a week to see the next one. Okay. I also watched Discovery, and like you, I watched the first 2 or 3 episodes in the latest season. And I've given up because I can't be bothered to wait. it's not as enthralling as Mandalorian is, and so I'm not bothered that I haven't seen it for a couple of weeks now, or 3 weeks, whatever it's been. So I think now I'm just going to wait until they're all out, and I'll just start the season again.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I was so looking forward to Mandalorian season 2 that I just have to watch it.
Yeah.
And it's been a long time since there's been a show that where I really didn't mind waiting a week because I was just so looking forward to it. But yeah, so this is it's pretty good. It actually looks I think it looks even better than the first season.
Really?
Yeah.
In what way?
Well, it just visually looks even more like a movie.
Oh, okay.
For the most part, I think it's they're pioneering a number of production techniques on that one, lighting techniques and stuff, and it looks even better than the first season, I think. And it's it's cool. And also, there's I'm not giving too much away, but there's you'll see some. There's like there's a couple of X-wing fighters that show up and some X-wing fighter pilots, and it just takes you back into that universe like properly,
Yeah.
And so it's good. So, I enjoy it.
Oh, awesome. Got me excited now.
Oh yeah.
What? No, Nick, wait.
So we're back on the Netflix, man. That's it. Netflix, Disney Plus, the whole shebang. It's
Cool, man.
So, what else has been happening in the world of photography for you this week, then?
Can we talk about gear?
Anytime.
Like gear. Well, as you know, I've been using the Aperture Light Dome for a while now, and it's a large modifier. It's brilliant. I love that thing. But there have been a few instances of late where it's just been a touch too big. Purely, not necessarily in how the light differs, but physically, it's just been too big for the location. So I've gone out and got myself the Light Dome Mini as well, which is about half the size, if not slightly smaller than that. But it's give or take about half the size. And that's actually what I'm using right now instead, because it's the first time using it. I got it the other day, and I really like it. It's very, very cool. The light is a little bit different that comes out, as you'd imagine with a smaller modifier. It doesn't quite wrap as nicely as a larger one. But I'm very, very happy. I'll see when I edit this video. But what I can see on the screen and little test shots before we started today, it looked great. It looked really, really nice. So I'm very, very pleased with that. Now I can be confident that when I do have a tighter space, I can use this and I'll get similar results to using the larger one. So yeah, very, very pleased with that. It's identical to the larger version, other than its size. Comes with all the same kind of accessories, if you like, the grid, the diffusion, and so on. So hopefully it looks all right. So that's what I'm using today. That's my gear purchase of late. What else have I got on a gear perspective? It was my birthday the other day, and I got given from two separate people who hadn't spoken to each other. They both got me these cameras. Couldn't believe it. What are the chances? So they're Kodak brownies from, oh God, I can't even remember. 60s? 50s? Can't remember now exactly. One's an old movie camera and a sort of 8mm. And this is a Bakelite sort of regular film camera. So they're very cool. I'm just sourcing some film for them, and I want to give them a go because apparently they're in working order. But yeah, they're just not particularly expensive or anything like that, but they're just nice to look at. Yeah, cool. There we go. So that's my gear for the week. How about you?
Yeah, it's one of these things. If you find yourself with not much else to do, you end up on Amazon. I think is what happens. So So yeah, there's been a couple of gear purchases. I finally, after I don't even know how many years, finally bought a C stand. Believe it or not.
Hey.
Yeah, and it's already proven to be one of these purchases. Where you kind of, it's just one of these facepalm moments where you just go, "Why the heck didn't I buy a C stand like 15 years ago?"
Yeah.
Like, why? And of course, they are pricey. I mean, as far as stands are concerned, they're on the pricey side. But I tell you one thing: it's like once you go C stand, you never go back. It's absolutely true. Not only they're big and heavy and everything, and so they're the kind of the polar opposite of what you typically look for when you look when you're looking for a piece of gear, especially if you know that you have to take it on location and everything.
Yeah.
But the advantages really outweigh the disadvantages with that one. It's big and heavy. Well, it's actually a good thing because you can put some heavy modifiers on there. Like it'll take like 150 centimeter softbox or something, or octabox, super easy, with some heavy lights on there, no problem. And it's just a solid piece of gear. It's also really flexible. That's the other thing that I found. It's you can swing it around, and you can get the light really close to the ground if you need to. It's I've actually found it to be very useful, and it sort of takes a little bit of worry out of setting up lights and modifiers and stuff like that. I also find that I don't really have to counterbalance it very much with sandbags or something like that. It seems to be pretty damn solid. So I like it. And again, it's one of these things where you just go like, why haven't I invested in that before? It's a bit like, I think anybody who moves from any photographer who starts photography as a hobby and then eventually moves into maybe the world of semi-professional photography and into professional photography. One of the things I think everybody always says is like, the first proper expensive tripod I bought was one of the best investments I've ever made. And I can totally, testify to that, because I know that, the first really expensive tripod that I forked out for is a tripod that I've been using time and time again, and it's just as solid now as it was when I bought it years ago. And it's a similar thing that I feel about the C stand. It's just such a useful piece of gear, and a lot of the other stands that I've been using so far really fade into insignificance, as they say, in comparison to that. So that was good. The other thing I actually bought was I just bought another octabox, which I don't know. I have this thing about modifiers. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like a slight obsession or something. I bought a smaller octabox, and it's more practical to take on location or to travel. It's great for headshots. It's a little bit smaller than the one that I've been using normally, and it probably, I'm always interested in the light fall off when it comes to, especially with headshots. I'm interested in the light fall off, especially sort of on the top of the chest, and I like to play around with that. So this is just a small investment. They're not terribly expensive, but it's just another thing to play around with.
And actually, you're to blame, really, for me actually buying the Light Dome Mini.
Really?
So you mentioned that you just had that delivery.
All right, okay.
For that softbox, and I thought, God, it just got me into gear to looking at it again, because I've been thinking about buying it for quite a while.
Yeah.
And just never really got round to it because of we've been in lockdown. It hasn't been as needed just yet. And then you've got that, and I thought, I'm going to look again. So I did.
Yeah. I think Amazon is dangerous really sometimes, because you can put stuff into your shopping cart, and and you don't have to buy it. You just keep it for later. And then the more often you look at it, the more likely you end up being actually buying it. So yeah.
Yeah, man.
But it's, again, it's fun. I'm constantly toying around with different modifiers and different lighting setups and backgrounds. I'm quite obsessed with backgrounds as well. So, the other thing I did actually, this is really something I really got into was at first when we first got into this lockdown, I sort of thought, oh damn it, that means the lab that I usually use to have prints done, that's going to be shut down and everything. And so, but it turned out they're open. And so I kind of took this as an opportunity to get some more prints made, and frame them and put them up around the house. So that was fun because, as I think in this day and age, I actually think we as photographers very often we don't print enough, and it's there is something to actually getting your hands on a print and actually seeing your work in print and everything. There really is something to it. There's something really beautiful to it, and there was I had some time to play around with that, which was great. And although I don't print at home, I use a lab, or I have been using a particular lab in town for years, and it's as per usual, the kind of results that I got back were really outstanding. So
how did you settle on that? Because I know you've been using that lab for a long time now. How did you settle on that lab? What is it that they do differently, perhaps, to any other lab? Well, why do you like them?
Well, I mean, I remember in the beginning, I've been searching around. I've been trying out different labs, and I think when you live in a small town like me, I live in a small town on the outskirts of London, and you can kind of, you can argue about whether it's a suburban town just out on the outskirts of London. And of course, we have a little local lab here, but it really isn't very good. It's just one of these chain kind of labs, and it's not, it's way overpriced, and the quality is terrible, basically. Mm-hmm. So it really isn't isn't the professional standard that you would need. And so I've tried out lots of different labs, and somebody recommended this particular lab to me. It's called the Print Space. It's in London, in an area near a place called Old Street. I tell you what I really like about this lab is you can email the files in, and they print it, and they send the prints back to you within a day or two. It's really very quick. But you can also walk in. They have a whole range of monitors you could use, or you can bring in your own laptop, whatever. They calibrate your laptop or your monitor for you, which is cool. And you can get the prints or the files print ready then. But the guys who run this lab are real color nerds. That's how I call them. And I've really found that to make a difference. The prints that I've gotten back from them, and we're not sponsored by them or in any way, shape, or form, but it's just my own personal experience is that whenever I've given them any work to print, the prints that I've gotten back were really outstanding. And so, you go with what you've got, what you've made good experiences with, and that's just, for me, it's just, it's just those guys, I like the prints. What can I say?
It's not something I ever really do, printing, but you're kind of gearing me up to want to print some more, because I generally don't have many photos up around the house because I rent, and I've rented for a few years now. I generally don't put stuff up because I can't be bothered to take care of it when I move out.
Oh,
but I need to get a few printed up, I think.
I think once you see the difference between you just using your regular home printer printing something out, but also once you see the difference between a pro lab like that and just your local, what are they called, happy snaps or something?
Snappy snaps.
Snappy snaps or something. your local high street kind of lab. There's a major difference there, and it's incredible. And it's sort of, I always find it quite humbling, when you see your own work printed like that, and it's really satisfying. And prints, I never really. I never used to print very much, and I think that changed when I got married, and I actually got So when I got married, our Daniel Akeley, who we've interviewed on this podcast in the past, he shot our wedding, and we didn't expect any prints at all. That wasn't part of the agreement, because we had a very small wedding, and it was it was a little bit different. And we really weren't expecting any prints. But what happened was, we received the digital files, a few weeks after we got back from honeymoon, and that was awesome. The pictures looked great. But a few weeks after that, we got a parcel in the post, and it was a wooden box with a selection of prints in it. And it's a really beautiful experience to just to take these prints and look at them. And we've got that box is on our windowsill in the living room, and we look at our photos really on a regular basis, and you just wouldn't do that if you only had digital files. And the thing is, like, that's really is the difference with prints. I feel that just simply because we have this box of prints, that we look at our wedding photos much more often than if we just had the digital files on a computer or something, So, and that's really first. That really made me think, because before that, in my professional work, there was really no need to print, because with a lot of corporate headshots and all the rest of it, it really is all digital files. There's no printing involved, and even when it comes to actors headshots, there really is no printing involved on my part. It's all it's all digital, and the same with event photography, and so on. So it's because I don't really shoot weddings. There's never really been a need to put together photo albums or prints or frame things or whatever. So it's just one of those things that really got me thinking again about the whole idea of printing photographs. It's so easy to get kind of drawn into the world of digital that you tend to forget how beautiful it actually is to hold to look at a print, to just look at your photo on that medium, and so I'm actually even more fascinated by printed photographs now than I was before that.
I think what you say is absolutely right, and it's so easy to have 10,000 photos on your hard drive. You never look at them. They just sit there, right? But so you've inspired me to go and get a few printed up. Would you have any sort of words of caution or advice before I send a picture off to get printed, to make sure that it comes back looking how I expect it to look?
Well, I mean, there's really two things. Ideally, color calibrate your monitor, because one of the main issues that you have, if you compare a print to the image that you see on the screen, is the fact that your screen may be differently calibrated, and so it's really important to make sure that that's taken care of. And there's a number of different ways you could do it. You can get something called a spider, which you basically sort of plop on your screen, plug it into the USB port, run the software, it does everything for you, and then should be good to go. Because on a screen, your image is backlit. I mean, screen is backlit essentially, so the colors will come out slightly differently from the way that they'll appear in the print, and they can be a major difference if your screen is out of whack and it's not calibrated correctly. So your images there could be a complete color shift. They could just be too warm or too cold. It's just and it's disappointing when you get something, you edit something, and you think it looks perfect, absolutely beautiful on the screen. Then you get the print back, and you go, that doesn't look like what it looks like on the screen at all. And so you want to get that as close as you possibly can. So that's one thing. The other thing is, no matter which lab you use, always make sure that that you read their instructions as to how to prepare the file. That's really, really important. in terms of color space and whatever they suggest, because labs use different printers or processors or whatever, and and if you can't find any of these instructions on their website, just get in touch with them and say like, hey, is there anything I need to look out for? Which color space do you suggest I use? Is there anything I need to set up in Photoshop before I press send, basically. So that's really, that's the main thing. As long as you take care of all these things, then you should get, the printed results should be as close to what you can see on your screen as possible. You could really dive into that. There's a whole bunch of things you can do. The light, the way that your room is lit when you're editing that can make a difference. Depending on what your ambience light is like, whether you're working in a room that's predominantly lit by daylight, like window light or something, or whether you've got tungsten lighting on, or all of these things have an impact on the way you perceive colors, the way we perceive colors, and so that's just something to look into. It's a rabbit hole. I know people who are total and utter color nerds. It's it really goes from taking the picture, making sure that your white balance, your color balance is correct, down to editing on a monitor that's color calibrated, to then making sure that all your settings are the way they should be, so that the lab can handle a file and print something that reflects what you want. As long as you're taking care of all of these things, then you should be fine. And of course, you want to use a lab that's good. So, like I said, I've used some high street labs before, and the results that I've gotten back from them are pretty much always off. And I just, somebody presses a button, and that's it. And then,
in the past, I've just some quick holiday snaps or something like that I've taken into somewhere like one of those high street chains. I can't remember which one it would have been now. And I remember talking to the girl behind the counter who was serving me at the time. She said, it'll be done in whatever. They do some correction on photos, which I was not aware of, that they do that. I don't know if they do it all the time, or whether it's when certain people are working or what, but they edit the photos in a way, and I'll bet it's as much as hitting auto in Lightroom style, something like that. That's not good. I guess for the Joe public, it's probably a good thing for them, and I bet those photos do come out slightly better than had they had no work done on them whatsoever. But it's worth, if you are going to go to use a high street chain and you've already edited your photo and you want them, to look at least close to what you've done, make sure you mention to them, don't do any touch up on these, don't do anything to these, just print it as it is. I wasn't aware that they did that.
The thing about labs doing their own corrections is, generally, you always have to think about who you're dealing with as a customer. Yeah. I think if you're, back in the day when everybody used to shoot on film, like in the pre-digital era, the vast majority, of films would be like holiday snaps, for example. And of course, you want to make sure that as many as possible of these shots on the 36 frame roll or something would be usable. So they would make corrections in terms of the crop or the colors or the exposure or whatever, so that when you get the photos back, you'd have as many images as possible that you could use as memories or something from your recent holiday or something. But of course, for when you want to get a professional print made, that's a whole different ballgame. It's just because you want to be the person in control. And there's a lot to be said for printing at home or printing stuff yourself. And I know a lot of people who do that, and it's almost like a craft in its own right. and it's definitely. I mean, it's interesting. It's also quite. It's really quite expensive. That's the other thing to bear in mind. So, it's we've got a visitor. Hello.
We've got a dog visiting, have we?
Oh yes.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, the joys of working from home. And in today's episode of the Camera Shake podcast, we're going to be interviewing our latest guest, Mr. Solo
Motley.
Motley. I mean, I'll tell you one thing, though. I've actually come across a really cool story that really links in really well with this whole conversation about printing and everything. Because I read about a story about the oldest people to ever be photographed before.
I'm trying to work out what word you were about to say.
Yeah. So we've in the past, in the distant past, we've talked about the first photograph of a human ever, to be taken and everything. But so this story is really quite interesting because I wasn't really aware of that. So back in the 1840s, Matthew Brady basically brought the daguerreotype photographic process to the United States for the first time, right? And so he'd come across that in France, and just for those viewers or listeners who are not aware of what daguerreotype is, it's basically a photographic process whereby you take a sheet of silver plated copper, and you treat that with fumes to make it light sensitive, essentially. And then you expose that to light, and then you make the image visible by fuming it with mercury fumes or mercury vapor. And then you transfix the image, and that's basically how you create the final image. So it was the first photographic process that was really publicly available, right? And so therefore it became very popular, and it really it very quickly it was created around about 1839 or something by Louis Daguerre in France, and it became super popular, and it really it became very popular in the United States really, really quickly thereafter. And so it was first brought to the United States by Matthew Brady, and so he set up a photographic studio in New York in the 1840s. And what was interesting was that for a lot of the sort of younger generation, they really looked at this this newfangled photography thing with a bit of suspicion, and it was actually the older generation that those people who were born in the 1700s who thought it'd be a good idea to sit for him and have him take photographs. And so what we end up with as a result of that is photographs of people who were born in the 1700s, and that's really the oldest generation of people who were ever photographed. And it's really quite fascinating to look at some of those pictures, and to look at first of all, to look at the way they're dressed. I always find it really interesting, and the way they kind of the way they looked and everything. But what's really interesting about these photographs is also to kind of see the look in their eyes. It was just because this to them must have been, this was like brand new technology. They would have never experienced anything like it. And so the kind of the look of wonder and confusion in their faces, it's really very fascinating when you look at those. So that was quite an endearing story that I came across.
How long did they have to hold still for a photo back then?
So with the daguerreotype, it really depends on how much light there is. So it could be several minutes or several seconds, depending on the conditions. So in broad daylight, because you're trying to get these chemicals to react essentially to the sunlight, and so if you're in broad daylight, like in bright sunlight, for example, it could just be a few seconds. But if you're in a if the lighting conditions aren't ideal, then it could be several minutes, I guess.
So that's why in all those days gone by photos, no one ever smiled, because you might have to hold a smile for 6 minutes.
Yeah, that's true, and that's also why very often they look like they had a broomstick, down their shirt or something. It's because it's difficult. So different times.
Yeah, indeed.
Different times.
That's cool, I'd like to see those.
Yeah, it's sort of a little, I don't know. I always find it interesting. Also, I find it interesting with photography. I also find it interesting with film. We've talked about this before. Looking at film footage from the the turn of the century, where you see people, the way they walked and the way they moved back then. When you see this corrected, not only colorized but also corrected in terms of frame rates and everything, and you actually realize that despite what you may have thought previously by watching old black and white footage, by realizing that actually they didn't really move that differently from the way that people move today, it's really quite an eye-opener, and it's literally like a window into the past, you know. And it almost makes you feel like you're there in a weird way, and to realize that all of that's real and it's not it's not actors or anything or set or whatever.
Some of those are they're really odd to watch, but they're just captivating.
And it's captivating. That's exactly the word. Yeah.
To see footage that historically you would have seen as jumpy and done at 4 frames a second or whatever whatever it might
absolutely.
be, and the quality was always obviously bad, but to see them done in the way they are, that it could just be shot in your street, it's just unreal. And it reminded me of, and I'm blanking on the name, but I saw a post the other day that someone had put up on social, to a link to someone who's taken photos in various locations across the world, and superimposed an old photo which was taken not necessarily the same angle or anything like that, but there or thereabouts, of historical moments, back in World War I, World War II, things like that. So there's a shot, I think, in Paris where they've, Hitler was there, for example, and they've put them next to the person that's taken the photo, and it's just, and in Normandy and places like that, and all of those kind of shots, and it's quite. It makes you stop and think and going, well, if you've been to these places, it just puts another spin and say, hey, remember that this happened here. This is what was going on here. 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 years ago, whatever the topic was in that photo. And it's just, wow, you've got to remember that these things happened, and right where you're standing as well.
If you had a time machine and you had one trip, right, one trip only, where would you go?
Oh, God.
A return trip. I mean, you can come back. So basically, there's one place in time that you could visit. Where would you go? Which?
Well, I think it would have to be into the future, and I'd have to get some kind of trainers that did themselves up.
Awesome.
Actually, haven't we passed that year already? From Back to the Future.
I think. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We have. Yeah.
Yeah. So bizarre. So how wrong they were.
Well, so was Terminator, because all that happened in 1999 or something.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
When machines took over the world. Oh, wait a minute. Did that happen?
No, just well, Trump.
Or maybe it did. Maybe it did, because according to the latest article that I read on Petapixel, I think it was, or somewhere, there's a whole discussion going on about whether AI, now that AI is taking over photo retouching, this whole debate about whether that's a good idea, or whether it's going to take away, actually whether it's going to cost jobs was one of the one of the ideas.
It's a valid concern.
Retouchers might be out of a job.
True. Well, speaking of all of that reminds me of the most disturbing thing I've ever seen that happened this week. And this was just, it just made me physically sick. It was that horrendous. And that was seeing your face on Victoria Beckham's body.
Ha! That made me physically sick.
It was no, Scott, that was the worst one. It was you as Daniel Radcliffe in Harry Potter, where he's taking off. It looks like lingerie in it. I'm not sure what scene that was in Harry Potter, but that was more disturbing to see you like that.
I tell you, I mean, that it's an app called Reface. So what that app does is it basically takes a still image of you and it scans your face, whatever, and then it essentially applies your face to the face of whatever actor in some movie clip, right? And we've seen these things, before, like over the last couple of years or something. There's been lots of YouTube clips or something where somebody's refaced a famous movie scene, right, from, I don't know, Indiana Jones or whatever, and it's, or Back to the Future. In fact, I saw a video where they're taking Eric Stoltz's face and they've basically put that onto Michael J. Fox's, character, and they had a bunch of scenes from Back to the Future, playing with Eric Stoltz as Marty McFly, and of course Eric Stoltz was the original actor cast for Back to the Future, and then for whatever reason got fired or was let go or whatever, and Michael J. Fox took over, and so they had they basically refaced some of Michael J. Fox's scenes, and it looks really surprisingly real, right? And of course there's a danger there, because you could take somebody's, like an actor's or a politician's face, and put it on somebody else's head, and make them say things that they never actually said, for example, and that could be potentially abused in some way, right? So there's a bit of a worry there. But this app came out, and I wanted to see how realistic. I wanted to see, first of all, how easy it was to reface, to put your face or my face onto some movie clip, and I also wanted to see how realistic it actually looked. And I have to say, I was shocked and surprised to see not only how easy it was, but also how realistic the results looked. I mean, it was
and quick really, too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was quick. It was literally seconds.
Yeah.
So from a processing point of view, and all this happens on your phone, mind you. It's an app. It's a phone app, and so sorry, it's a phone app. So it's like, it's literally seconds. I mean, the computational power in your phone now supersedes the computational power of the space shuttle, apparently.
Yes, it does. It definitely does.
So yeah, it was surprising. And in this app, you have like a whole selection of different movie clips that you can choose from, and it'll literally just. And the funny thing was, it was not only that it's taking my face, but also the original photo that I told the app to use was a black and white photo.
Really?
Yeah, it was a black and white photo, and so it not only did it color my face in, but it just so it was like, whoa, okay, that's shocking. And then I kind of thought, wouldn't it be funny if I put my face onto like some characters that really don't that don't look anything like me? So I put my face on the Spice Girls.
Yeah, I know,
and stuff like that. So it's funny. It's fun to play around with. For a bit, but at the same time, it's kind of worrying as well, So yeah, it was worth an experiment.
I'm going to do it later, and I'm going to send that video to you, so you have to look at me as a Spice Girl. Yep. Yeah.
So again, here for our listeners, so what happened was that I got this app. I put my face in lots of movie clips. I kept sending them to Nick. So that wasn't
I had nightmares.
I bet, yeah. That was the idea.
Seeing you as a bearded woman.
Hey. Oh, there's another clip taken from Game of Thrones, I think. That was just equally hilarious. So, but yeah, you can be anybody. You can be Batman. I think you can be Spider-Man. You can be Indiana Jones. You can be Superman, I think. Yeah. That's pretty good.
Yeah, you're going to get a barrage of these later.
Yeah. If you've ever refaced your own face onto somebody else's character, please send us the clips because we really want to see those. Again, hit us up on Instagram as @CameraShakePodcast or send us an email. It's camerashakepodcast@gmail.com. Or hit us up on Facebook. In fact, if you're not following us on Facebook already, do that right now. And for those of you listening to the audio version of this podcast, actually head over to YouTube and give us a subscribe because it would really help us a lot. And not only that, of course, if you do love the audio version of this, and you're on Apple Podcasts, for example, if you go to the show and you scroll down to the very bottom, leave us a review. We would love to hear what you think of the Camera Shake podcast. Now, coming back to the whole AI debate. I mean, this article was quite interesting. It did make me think because we talked about the new version of Photoshop and the Adobe Sensei AI that's behind it, and of course, just as a recap, the latest version of Photoshop allows you to do some incredible things. Like the sky replacement feature is incredible. It's so easy, and it gives you so much flexibility. It's literally, at a click of a button, you can replace a whole sky in your photograph and make it look, much more, I don't know, dramatic or whatever. And the masking is it's pretty damn good. So it can save you a ton of time when you're editing. It could be really quite useful. On the flip side, are we going to be seeing the same sky in every other photo on Instagram? That's the other question. And so there's another thing that's new in Photoshop 2021, and that's the neural filters. And those filters really make it super easy to execute a number of retouching processes that previously took a lot of time and effort. Like, for instance, skin retouching, facial retouches. You can take the makeup from one photo and apply it to the model in another photo, with the click of a button. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that, where artificial intelligence really seems to take over, and it just seems to allow you to do things super quickly. And the whole debate was, well, is that a good thing? Does it take away from the artistry? Do we lose, I don't know, the personal touch when it comes to retouching? Or should we embrace the progress of technology? And is this really something that can just save us a ton of time in post-production? And so the opinions are split.
I think that I would say embrace. At the end of the day, all of these things are just another tool, right? And that's what they are. They're no more, they're no less. They're another tool. Provided that you know when and how to use them and when not to use them, I don't see the harm in them. It's, are you going to be using those on every photo? No. Is there something that one of those neural filters can do that you either would have spent ages doing previously or didn't have the skill yet to do? Then great, use it. If that gets you a step forward, if you can go back and, or almost reverse engineer how it's doing it and then learn from that as well, great. It's amazing. But this is all about, just take the sky replacement thing. That's been around forever. People have been doing that for the longest time. They just now make it easier to do. Perhaps a mistake was giving you a set of skies in the tool. Maybe if they'd just not given you any and you had to go and take your own, then that might stop the same skies turning up here and there. But I don't see an issue with it at all, provided you use it at the right times. What do you think?
It's one of these things. I mean, I sort of think that it's it's either you embrace progress and new technologies, and then you'll see it as a positive, or you're sort of the opinion that it's all about the artisanship and like the craftsmanship that goes into retouching photographs and and you assert your own personal style, and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, you'd be looking at this quite critically. I mean, I think it's, probably if you look back, historically over technological developments in photography or in the creative arts in general, in particular in photography, then new technologies tend to come in from time to time, and they tend to take over. Like, I mean, moving from film to digital, for example. I mean, even like moving to 35 millimeter film originally, and then moving to DSLRs, and then moving to digital, and all the rest of it, and and the introduction of Photoshop in the first place, being able to digitally manipulate your photographs, on a computer. That really, I'm pretty sure back then you had people who, were defending these processes, in the dark room back in the day. So I think what's really happened every time is that, those people who embrace these new technologies then were able to move on and push the creative envelope even further. And I think, it's probably something. I mean, it's probably an opportunity, now for that to happen, because you can let AI do certain things, which basically allows you then to actually take your creative thinking and just push that beyond just a sky replacement. Maybe, so this might actually open up, more creativity in photography in general. There are shots. There's a whole ton of stuff on Instagram right now that you really wouldn't have seen 20 years ago.
Yep.
Before the advent of Photoshop, you just wouldn't see these shots. The kind of composites, the really creative compositing that's happening a lot of the time. It's so I'm just interested. Personally, I'm just interested in seeing what the next level is going to be after that. What are people going to come up with next? That is what I'm curious about personally. So, and I mean, I think for anybody who's had to, hand retouch, I don't know, even just like 30 headshots in a row, you know what I mean. If you can click a button, then it's, because the reality is also, purely, from a, like say, take a corporate headshot type of situation, where you're shooting, you're shooting images that will end up, like 120 by 100, like 120 by 200 pixels or something at the bottom of an email signature or something like that. If you can press a button and enhance the retouching on those, great, because that's really as good as it needs to be. Do you know what I mean? If you're doing something for some advertising campaign and it goes into a billboard on the side of a bus or the side of a building, that's a whole different ballgame. So I think there's horses for courses.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, we talked about this last time when we talked about the new Photoshop version. If you're a real estate photographer and you need to replace the skies as standard, and this will basically save you a couple of hours of work, and you can go and have a coffee instead. Why would you do that? It's great, because most likely, and this is like just by looking around, we're looking at like real estate, what do you call it? So what is it called? It's not real estate. What's it called in the UK?
Real estate's fine.
Yeah, the like real estate shops or whatever.
You're looking for estate agents, aren't you?
Oh, estate agents. That's the one. Yeah, I always get confused. So yeah, over here in the UK, realtors are called estate agents, and so you very often see the property photographs in the shop windows, and 9 times out of 10, you can tell that the skies have been replaced, very often badly, actually. And so if that gives, if that allows some of those real estate photographers to do a better job, then great. I personally don't think there's anything wrong with that. Yeah, I mean, it would get a little bit tiresome if you opened up Instagram and you'd see the same sky on like every other photo. That would be extremely boring. But hey,
Well, so we will see, won't we?
Yeah, I mean, apparently, Skylum's Luminar, it's apparently there's some new AI coming out there as well in the not too distant future, so that'll be interesting. Personally, I haven't used Luminar personally, but I know from having spoken to a lot of friends who have loved it, because Luminar has been able to or has allowed you to do the whole sky replacement thing, for a while. So Photoshop have been a little bit late to the party with that. Although, actually, I've spoke to a friend of mine only a few days ago about the differences or how Luminar and Photoshop compare in the way that they replace the sky. And actually, I've been told hands down in Photoshop the masking is better, and apparently you have more flexibility with layers and stuff afterwards to go in and refine that even more if you need to. So well, it seems to be going into an interesting direction.
For sure. Well, let's see what comes out next.
Yeah, and of course, we can debate the pros and cons of the subscription system. But of course, if you are subscribed to Adobe's Creative Suite or the photography package or something, and of course you've got the advantage that you get the latest versions and the latest updates all of the time, and so it's easy to keep up with all of that.
Sure, for sure.
Having said that, here's another thing. You may be able to clue me up on this. Maybe I don't know how far you've looked into that. But Apple have come out with their own proprietary chip recently, and I can't just remind me what it's called.
Oh, ARM.
Yeah. So, but apparently Adobe apps are not certified to run on that just yet.
Brilliant. I hadn't heard that. That doesn't surprise me though. That doesn't surprise me. The only things I've really read about it, because I'm steering clear of it for a while. I'm not interested in upgrading just yet until it's gone through a couple of generations and they've ironed out the issues. Because software relies on the processor so much, it needs to work in a specific way, and the software needs to be able to work with that processor correctly. And I guess there must be tons of work that's required for programs like Photoshop or Premiere Pro that if it doesn't talk to it perfectly, it can cause major issues. So I'm not surprised to hear that. I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, it's probably, it's early days. It was only just announced recently, so
yeah, But I expect there to be problems like that for a long time yet. Yeah, in a couple of years, we'll be talking. It'll be different. But I haven't seen any real world examples yet. But they were saying that things like Final Cut, obviously it's made by Apple, so I'm sure it works perfectly with their new chips. A lot of that is running at 5 or 6 times faster, is what I read in the announcement. Oh, really? What exactly is running 5 or 6 times faster? I don't know. Does it really work that way in real world situations? I don't know that either yet, but that's what they were saying. So if they can get that level of performance increase over the next couple of years with all of that kind of software, they're onto a winner then. That said, are Intel keeping up with that? Probably in the background. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. Well, with that in mind, I think we've come to the end of episode 30. Man, 30 weeks.
My age. Ha!
You're right.
Yeah, right. I'm I turned 30. I turned 30s the other day.
30s. Yeah. It's a bit of an anniversary, really. 30 weeks.
Yes, it's quite a milestone, that. Don't worry, we'll say the same again when we hit 50.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Or 40, or 50, or 100. So, yeah, but it's kind of, it's funny to think that we've been doing this for 30 weeks. And I know we're saying this pretty much every week, but, 30 weeks, that's a lot of weeks, man.
Yeah, it is. I've got to keep talking to you, haven't I, every week now?
I know. Damn it.
All good.
Anyway, so again, if you haven't, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll find us. Just search for Camera Shake Podcast on YouTube. It would help us out a ton. We need to hit the 100 subscriber limit so that we can actually name our channel on YouTube. So that'd be fantastic. Alternatively, if you're listening to the audio version of this and you're listening on Apple Podcasts on the app, just scroll down to the bottom and leave us a review. That'd be fantastic. Otherwise, just get in touch. Send us a comment on YouTube, or send us an email. Get in touch on Facebook, or follow us on Instagram at Camera Shake Podcast. That being said, we'll see you next time from the home studio when it's time for episode 31.